Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. It's Friday, the 4th day of November, 2022. And yes, the headline there, kind of hard to believe I wrote it. Hurricane threat for next week with a question mark. It is possible. It is possible. The GFS certainly suggesting it. If it's not a hurricane, it is definitely looking like a big disruptive event setting up in the southwest Atlantic, maybe in the vicinity of the east coast of Florida. Whether or not it goes to the extreme of what the GFS is indicating, time will tell. I want to play detective a little bit today and kind of unpack what could be leading the GFS in that direction. You know, does it make sense? Is it meteorologically even possible? Or is this some kind of an overdoing of the situation? We will all learn about it together. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got out there. This, the National Hurricane Center homepage, always a good start. Hey, look, there's Lisa, still down in the Bay of Campeche. Winds are 35 miles per hour. A tropical depression still milling around down there. Could be somewhat of a flood threat to this part of Mexico, the southeast part of Mexico, as it drifts and eventually dissipates because upper level winds are going to be too strong down there. Dry air is coming in, and Lisa will eventually fade on away. There's another system out here, only at 10% of development. It's a weak non-tropical area of energy and low pressure east-southeast of Bermuda. Not too much to worry about with that. But as we expand out to the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook here, our area in orange that I'm outlining in blue, yes, that is 30%, actually 40%, sorry, 40% right there. Probably going to go up to 50% when the 2 p.m. version of this update gets released here in the next little while. And we have to watch this area out here very closely over the coming days. There's a lot of energy starting to gather through this region. I'll show you on satellite in just a moment. And yes, the possibility, there's a non-zero chance that we get a hurricane threat possibly for Florida, the Bahamas, certainly a strong storm, whether it is spread out or concentrated. We'll have to see. We'll get to that as we move through the rest of today's update. First, though, looking at the broader picture, there's Lisa in the Bay of Campeche. This we need to talk about in just a few minutes as well, towards the end of today's update. We may be hurricane track, but keeping you aware of other weather events, especially during the spring season. We do that a lot, but the second season of severe weather is upon us, the fall severe weather season, and there's a nasty outbreak of severe weather that looks like it's getting ready to ensue in the next few hours, and we just want to make sure we do our part here to get the word out. Hopefully a lot of people are paying attention because this does look like it could be rather nasty, and again, we'll address that before we sign off today. Elsewhere in the tropics, there's the system somewhere over here. That's what I mean. It's not much east and southeast of Bermuda, but here are all the different pieces of the puzzle coming together that could end up developing something quite interesting and very impactful in the vicinity of the southwest Atlantic, northwest Bahamas, off the coast of Florida, the southeast U.S. as a whole. Still several days away, but some of the modeling is trending stronger and a lot more interesting, let's say. So let's just keep moving forward, and I'll show you what we've got. First, in the Bay of Campeche, there's Lisa. Notice the clouds not quite as just fanning out in a clockwise direction. There's some of that, but there's also just much more of sort of a mishmash of activity going on, a bubbling of the clouds, and a lot of the motion is this way, then you have some going this way. Bottom line, the atmosphere is not very supportive for Lisa to regenerate much. Could become a tropical storm again briefly. As I said yesterday, that wouldn't surprise me, especially over this area. Water temperatures are plenty warm, but the air is getting drier. There is stronger upper level winds, or there are stronger upper level winds coming. So Lisa really not going to have a chance to do much. But as it kind of mills around out here, some of that moisture could impact the southern Bay of Campeche coastal areas especially, but not a real big deal overall. Looking at the vorticity signature, that is a lot of energy sitting out over the plains there. Again, we'll take a look at that closer in just a little bit because this is very important, going to impact a lot of people. There's Lisa's signature there, and then here's all this energy trying to get together eventually over the southwest Atlantic. There's the energy east and southeast of Bermuda. So there's a lot of energy out there, a lot of vorticity, seedlings, if you will, for lots of high impact weather over the next several days. One of the key ingredients, before people start coming at me with it's November, water temperatures are too cool, etc. and so forth, let me just head that off and show you the facts. And again, when you're looking at these things, you see something like what the GFS is advertising, and I know a lot of people go to Tidbits, or they go to Pivotal Weather or Weather Models or wherever, and they see, I mean, heck, you can just browse your Facebook or Twitter and somebody posts a single image, kind of like I did on the title card there. It catches your attention and it needs to be explained. That's the difference here. I want to make sure we explain it and understand it together rather than just posting a graphic, hurricane threat next week, and that's it. No, that's no good. That's a disservice. We need to unpack what's happening out there and see if it's even possible. And one of the ingredients, of course, as we know, are warm ocean temperatures, and that is certainly the case. Those are present here in the Southwest Atlantic. 26 Celsius and up. That's about 79.5, let's just call it 80 Fahrenheit. Oh yeah, absolutely. The West Atlantic, the Southwest Atlantic there, definitely warm enough. There's 26, there's 27, there's 28. 28 Celsius is 82 Fahrenheit. That's some pretty warm water, and that extends into the Northwest Bahamas region, right up to the coast of Florida. So the water temperatures are not going to be holding this system back at all. In fact, they are warmer than average through this area by a pretty good margin, in some cases close to a degree Celsius warmer than normal for this time of year, on this date, or yesterday's date. This is always a day behind. So the players are there, the energy's there. Let's see what the GFS is up to. A couple of explainers, especially for the new people. This is the 850 millibar level of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is made up of layers. Where's 850 millibars? Well, that's about 5,000 feet up, and we are looking at a very similar part of what the model is showing is very similar to this. This is a satellite snapshot, not a forecast. Yes, this is from a satellite, and it's just a way to see through the clouds at what kind of energy is out there. Whereas this is the model's interpretation of what that energy or vorticity looks like. All right, so here we are at the present time, the 12Z run from today, November 4th, and let's just take this out in 24-hour increments, shall we, and see what happens. So 24 hours out tomorrow morning, not much out there overall. An interesting development, I guess you could call it, with that. Does that trigger more of an upgrade, so to speak, from the National Hurricane Center? It is concentrated there well east of Bermuda, so no worries for our friends Howard in Bermuda from that system. But it's interesting that the GFS tries to also kind of amplify that. If we go back to where we are now, literally right now I'm putting this together, just about 18Z, about an hour shy. But by tomorrow morning, yeah, something tries to develop out there just for what it's worth. But our attention is really going to be focused throughout this region right through here over the next few days here in the modeling. So there's 48 hours, not much, just a large gyre of energy trying to come together there. By 72 hours, now things start to become more interesting and concerning, because that's a lot of energy over a large area, and it's going to kind of pinwheel in because of strong high pressure over the Atlantic here, blocking it. It can't just develop and head out to sea. So this is going to kind of develop and then just pivot its way back and move towards Florida, it does look like, over the coming days. Whatever it is, it does look like it's destined to at least approach Florida. That's day 3. Here's day 4, and the GFS developing it into a large, spread out system over a huge area, not concentrated at this point in the model. It doesn't concentrate it together, spread out. So it'd be more of your subtropical storm if it even gets to this point at day 4. Just kind of showing you the picture here. Now, as I said, I want to play detective. Let's look at some other layers of the atmosphere. Let's go down to close to where you and I live. Now, I don't know anybody who's 10 meters tall. We don't live in the world of Avatar, where those creatures, the Na'vi, is that what they're called? They're like 10 feet tall or whatever. Seriously, well, those are feet. Meters is like 33 feet. The Na'vi aren't quite that tall, but you get what I'm saying. We're down close to where we live. Houses, yep, trees, 10 meters, absolutely. And there's obviously skyscrapers and buildings that are taller than 10 meters. But my point is, this is down close to where we are. 10 meters of the atmosphere, not too high off the ground there. So what do we see? Well, the pressure is at 1,002. So that's getting it. And then you've got this strong northeast wind component here. I say strong, it's strong enough. 20 to 30, almost 40 knots in some cases, blowing over a large area of the ocean here. From all the way up in the northwest Atlantic, off the mid-Atlantic itself, all the way down towards the Bahamas and the east coast of Florida. We call that a fetch. And that long fetch there piles up the water against the various coastlines. Outer Banks of North Carolina with a northeast wind, and the east-facing beaches of Florida, and all of these east-facing areas and north-facing areas of the Bahamas. What does that mean at face value? Big waves. We have, on this particular day, is the full moon. We have the extra high tides, the king tides. Not a good time to have a coastal storm. Whether or not it becomes a hurricane, it doesn't matter in terms of the impacts. Okay, it matters, I guess, what it's labeled. We talked about this yesterday. But these impacts here, regardless of what this is structured as or classified as, the impacts look like they're going to be prolonged and they could be fairly significant. So that is the 10-meter part of the atmosphere. Now let's take it up quite a bit to where the commercial airlines fly at about 40,000 feet or so, 200 millibars in the atmosphere. And what do we got? Well, the main thing I'm looking for, do we have any of these colors here, strong upper level winds, moving across our system? No, we don't. There are westerly winds going across it, but as you can see, they are less than 20 knots. They're at the very bottom of the scale. So very, very light winds aloft, some hints of anticyclonic flow or diffluence aloft, the air spreading out. Not the most ideal, but some divergence or diffluent flow. So that leads me to believe we are starting to see the bigger pieces of the atmosphere come together to possibly allow something to develop more potent at the surface. And we already talked about, and I showed you, that the water temperatures in that area would support a deeper, warm core, more concentrated system. So let's move this on out. We're going to go back to the vorticity side at 5,000 feet, 850, and let's move it ahead one more day. So this is 120 hours out, 5 days from now, Wednesday of next week, the 9th. Couple things to note. There's your outline of a pretty big surface high sitting over the eastern United States right there. I'm just kind of outlining it for you to give you the details there. And then there's our low, and then there's more energy even to the southwest of it. It's trying to bundle it, it looks like, east of the Bahamas, the GFS is. And this squeeze play between the two will definitely drive some stiff northeast winds another day of that. So 2 days, at least, of strong northeast winds piling up the water against the coastline. So, yeah, that could be problematic. Maybe, just maybe, depending on the way the wind direction is, Charleston Harbor, North Carolina Outer Banks, even the Sound Side areas, and, of course, the east coast of Florida definitely could have some problems, and we're going to address this in the coming days. So that's day 5. Let's go out to day 6 and watch what happens. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where I started to draw my map from that I put on for my graphic today, the thumbnail, that it has purpose, that the model is taking this in only 6 days. It's not 10 days out. 6 days is far enough that, yeah, you don't have to look at this and completely worry about it, but the GFS has been trending run after run, and I can show you a little bit tighter, a little bit more concentrated with that. Remember, just a little ways before, the day before, it was spread out. Now it's concentrating that energy, and it brings it right into Florida, potentially as a hurricane. That's what the model is showing. So let's just go back to the 6-day window there and look at the upper levels. Does it make sense? And it does. And the reason it does, you do have this little trough over here to the west, and there's one little area of diffluent flow aloft, the outflow. What you don't see, and this is so important, you don't see any of this going across the top of it. There's not this band of raging wind across the top of that. In fact, one could argue that that's a decent little outflow channel that has developed over here. This is 6 days out. This is far enough out that I'm not that concerned yet, but I'm concerned enough to even bring it up at all and talk about it first in the thumbnail to get your attention so that we can learn about it here and try to, as I say, I like that term, unpack all that we need to unpack and see if it's even plausible. So we got to watch this very, very closely, looking down at the sea level area, or close to it anyway, 10 meters, 985 surface pressure, and look at that, 1033 millibar high over Virginia and southeastern West Virginia. And now you've got this strong easterly fetch blowing across hundreds of miles of ocean into the coastline with the potential, as slight as it may be. We don't know if this is going to happen, and I'm sure, I already can see it now, different people are going to go ahead and go and stake their flag that, look, this is not going to happen. There's no way it's going to happen. There are those who like to dismiss things and kind of play the hero, but they don't know, just like I don't know that this is actually going to happen. Then I'm not going to say, yes, we need to be getting ready for a hurricane, because, look, I don't know the future. None of these books in my office, I was looking at some of these manuals. Here's one for a camera that I've got. This is not your 50 years of hurricane history. Remember that movie? Was it Back to the Future 2? I've said this in some of my other updates over the years. I don't know the future, but this is at least a glimpse into the possible future from one model run. And I know there's going to be that too. It's just the GFS, it's crap. Oh, really? Well, it is until it isn't. And sometimes the model will get the pattern right. All the models have their different biases and problems. Now, just to compare, what does the Canadian show? It's too early, by the way, to show the 12Z Euro. I don't want to get this online, so we're not going to be able to see that in today's update. But the Canadian, the CMC, has certainly evolved over the years to become a more reliable global model. It used to do a lot of convective feedback, and it would blow things up into really strong hurricanes and so forth, but the physics and whatnot have definitely gotten better. So what does it show? Let's move it out also to the 5 and 6 day time frame. A very large sprawling system. There it is at day 5, and then finally at day 6. That's a more likely scenario, in my humble opinion, and even my professional opinion, a large spread out system. And before you look at that and go, oh, thank goodness, that's just like, hey, look, you can either get rear-ended at 50 miles per hour or have a head-on collision at 30. Okay, they're both pretty bad car accidents. This is a big problem over a large area instead of a big problem over a smaller area. The GFS here concentrates things more, makes it a bona fide tropical cyclone. Everything's concentrated even into a hurricane, whereas the Canadian, much more spread out, and this too, thanks to tropical tidbits here, allowing us to look at the different layers. 997, so quite a bit weaker, but a much larger wind field with a huge area of onshore flow north of that, meaning that you're piling up the water from the Carolinas all the way down to the east coast of Florida, tide cycle after tide cycle, high tide after high tide, meaning that this could be also a big problem, even if it's not nearly as concentrated and as strong as the GFS. So something certainly we need to watch closely over the coming days. All right, now to this. This is very important too. Again, people that follow hurricanes probably also have interest in other weather, and we just can't ignore this. A moderate risk now. I mean, if this was May, there would be 4,000 chasers. There's probably already a couple thousand headed out to this area. That's a very dangerous area to chase, by the way. It's more thickly wooded. The woodlands of Texas is not too far away. That area is tough. So anybody that's out there, good luck, and especially this time of year where it gets dark early. But the bottom line is, chasers notwithstanding, hopefully they be safe. You folks that already live out there, this is what we're looking at, a moderate threat. What are the different categories? Well, the tornado threat, pretty significant here. 15% in that red area of a EF2 or stronger within 25 miles in the hatched area. Okay, so that's really, really important here. The wind threat, also substantial. and some large hail, though that's not the primary issue. The tornado and the wind threat definitely need to be monitoring any source that you can. Your phone, this is a great ally. Make sure that your weather alert feature is enabled on your phone here, because this could save your life. Use Radar Scope or your free radar app, whatever you're using. Make sure you're aware of what's going on. And let's look at the high resolution guidance here. This is the high resolution rapid refresh, or the HUR as we call it, valid just about now, coming up on 18Z, close to it anyway. And this is the area that we are most concerned with right through here. So let's see what happens. This is a great model. We use this a lot in the spring. Getting close to dark there, that's the problem. Just a couple hours before dark, things start to fire up, lines of storms. Some of those could be singular, discrete supercells, yes, especially some of these out in front of the main line right here, like these areas right here. That's very concerning. So yeah, the radar starts to light up, and it gets that way right towards the evening hours here, pushing across eastern Oklahoma, southwest Missouri into western Arkansas, and far eastern Texas to eventually western Louisiana. Bottom line, that is a nasty setup for the fall here. And then look on the backside, cold air draining in, and you could even get some frozen precip, just showing you the dynamics of the atmosphere here, not just hurricanes that we're looking for, so to speak, in our hurricane outlook. I should have said that we're out looking for, but you get the idea. It's not just hurricanes. We do have some severe weather that could be very problematic for our friends there in parts of the plains. So please be aware of that, especially as it gets towards dark. All right? So a lot to watch here over the coming days. I didn't think that, well, I should have known the way 2022 was going, that November is probably going to be very busy. And here it is. So we're going to be watching this very closely. I think that the National Hurricane Center will continue to raise the probabilities for development of this system, and eventually to get tagged with an invest number, and then we're going to get floaters, the satellite floater on it. Recon will be tasked. You know what's coming, and we'll certainly stay on top of it and keep you updated as to what's going on. All right, that is it from me for now. I will have an update in the morning. I got a soccer game with my son tomorrow afternoon, a couple hours away, so I want to make sure I go to that. So yes, I will get up in the morning and put together an update for you, and we'll look at the overnight guidance from tonight in tomorrow morning's update and outlook on what's happening with this potential threat next week. All right, have a great rest of your Friday. As always, thanks for tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Why not? Do the notification button, and please like the video to help the algorithms grow what we're doing. That would mean a lot to me. Good to have you along. Again, have a good rest of your Friday. I am Mark Sudduth. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow morning.